Welcome, everybody. So I'm Gail Schorsch. I'm founder and director of Bronx Eats, and I am very pleased that you're here and that you've chosen to spend part of your evening with us tonight. So I would like to give a shout out to Mariama Ba, who organized this 4-week series really so professionally. Mariama is a student at Lehman, and we would not be here tonight without her hard work and creativity. Many of you already know, but Bronx Eats is a safe place to meet and to learn and connect with each other around food and cooking. It's a shared community gathering place, which has been especially meaningful during this difficult Corona period. So when we come together for events like this, we send a message to ourselves and others that our health matters to us and that we value our time together in community. We value that our health matters, that we're going to take care of ourselves on a personal level, on a community level. So thank you so much for showing up for yourself and for this community. A few housekeeping notes. You guys probably know this, but you can pin Nicole's face by going up to those 3 dots in the top of her picture and clicking on pin, and then her face will be the largest of this group. And you are free, more than free, to ask questions as we go. We have a small group tonight, which is great. So if you prefer to use the chat box, that's great. But if you want to ask Nicole questions directly, that's also fine. And I'm asking that people take 1 minute to fill out the class survey that will be in the chat box in a little bit. And this helps us plan for future classes. And it's totally anonymous unless you choose to give your name. So now I would like to admit one more person, and then I'm going to introduce Nicole. So Bronx Eats is truly honored to have her here tonight. Nicole Celeste has lived in the Bronx for the last 6 years. She's the owner of Body Goddess, which is a women's health and fitness company. And she's also a certified health coach through the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and an NASM certified personal trainer and corrective exercise specialist. Nicole is also the mother of 5 children and a dietetics student at Lehman College, earning a degree in clinical nutrition. She has always believed in healing and preventing degenerative diseases through, I'm sorry, I'm just admitting one more person, through healthy nutrition. She believes in food and cooking education to help people eat healthy meals that best serve and support their bodies, especially for families and children. And now you'll probably be very interested in learning that Nicole is also planning to start a healthy meals company in the Bronx called Healthy on the Run. And her plan, people are clapping, I love it. The plan, you already have customers. The plan is to begin as a fundraiser for schools and daycares in the Bronx by having parents order meals for their specific day of the week, and they'll deliver the meals to pick up with their kids for that day and then give a percentage back to the school or daycare. So this gives parents a night off from cooking, but also offers them healthy meals instead of fast food. And parents also get to support the school or daycare at the same time. So keep your eyes out for this new local organization called Healthy on the Run. And without further ado, welcome, Nicole. We're really so happy that you decided to join us, and please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. All right. So I guess I'm just going to get started. If everybody has everything, we're going to start with the onions and the garlic first. I just want to mention that I've never had any formal cooking training. I just learned how to cook just, from my family and just, the same way most people do, picking up recipe books, stuff like that. So anyone can do what I do. Also, I am at my mom's, so I don't have my normal knife. So we're going to start with the garlic. Normally, I would smash it just to get the oils going, and also because it's easier to take off the skins. So I don't know if you can see well, but there's the garlic. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut each side and peel it. Okay. So we'll start there, just cutting. And then it's usually once you cut off each side instead of smashing it, it is easy to just take it off. So everything will come off. I'm going to cut all of them first, and then we can make them smaller. I prefer nice big chunks of garlic, but most people don't. So I'm gonna cut them up smaller, but you can do it really any way that you like.
In the meantime, I just want to let you know that I have some information for Nicole, and I'm just gonna put it in the chat in case you want to reach out to her later. I have her Instagram and her website.
Yeah.
Also, I'm gonna have a survey that we would like you to fill out as we progress throughout the class. If you guys can take 1 minute to fill it out, it will let us know what to do better for the next classes we will be having. Thank you.
Mariama, thank you so much. And Nicole, there's already a question about, is it
All right.
possible to substitute something else for the kale that you're using if somebody doesn't have kale?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you want to stick with the idea of using dark leafy greens, it can be any type of green. I'm actually using both kale and Swiss chard. You can use either or really any dark leafy green that you like. If you want spinach, if there's something else that you just prefer, it can be anything. I find that I like the kale and Swiss chard because they don't, they kind of hold their own when you cook them. They don't lose that texture. They stay nice and firm. But you can use anything, or you can eliminate with enchiladas, you can make them anything you want. So if you wanted to just do black beans and onions, you could even just do it that way. So it's a kind of meal you can just have fun with. So like I said, I like big pieces, but for the sake of that most people don't, I'm just gonna take the garlic and cut it into smaller pieces. And I guess I didn't mention, but I have 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 pieces, various sizes. You can see everything okay, right?
Yeah, it's really, really a great setup over there. Nicole was telling me that she's out of the city for a little while, so she's enjoying this larger kitchen, but she's normally in a small urban kitchen like the rest of us.
Yeah, I'm used to squeezing all 5 of my kids into a 2-bedroom apartment. We're looking to find a 3-bedroom right now. So in the meantime, my mom let me come here.
So one thing that's nice about this recipe is garlic is really a great thing to be eating these days to boost our immune system, right?
Yes,
In terms
absolutely.
of colds and the virus and, right, keeping us healthy.
Actually, it's funny because my mom is a chiropractor, and when I was a kid, anytime we got, like, if you had sinuses or something or an ear infection, she would actually press the garlic and put it in your ear or put it in your nose. Garlic is just like magic. And it's just as good when you're eating it as when you're using it for different things. Okay, so my garlic is all set. I'm just going to scoot that to the side, and then I'm going to cut my onion. I actually love red onions. I like anything with bright colors, and the brighter the better. So you can use yellow, you can use white. This is just my preference. So I'm going to start by I always chop off each side, and then I'll peel off the layer of it. I don't peel it very thin because I like to get as much of it as possible out of it. So, and I do use the whole onion. So once you cut each side off, it's a lot easier to peel it, and you just take that one side off.
Oh,
And
we're getting, Nicole, a tip about not crying when you cut up your onion. It says make sure to use a damp paper towel so you don't tear up when you cut your onion. Julissa, do you want to tell us what you mean?
Yeah, so Dr. Oz's daughter, I see her all the time on Instagram. And so she learned from TikTok that the closest thing that onions like absorb is your tears or something with moisture. Yeah. So the closest thing to your tears is the onion. So if you put like a wet paper towel close to the onion, you won't tear. So that's what she did, and she didn't even cry at all.
You know what? That's funny because I actually have a damp, you think damp works? Because I have a damp one for the
Yeah.
tortillas. So I
Yeah.
put it
Something close to it. Yeah. So that way you don't cry.
right, and then it kind of, oh, thank you.
Experiment.
You're welcome. I learned
I'm
today.
telling you, I don't actually know the secret to that. I always cry a little bit. So
I love it. Well, we learn from each other, right?
yeah. So I cut pretty big pieces because my kids are not the biggest fans of onions. So they can pull out the big pieces if they don't want to. You can cut them small, but I really I'll show you I cut them pretty big. So they're just like this, and then I'll break them up. And you can go really tiny, chop them up into small pieces. It's really going to be like a personal preference. But I like to cut, and I like the way they taste. So I like the big chunks anyway. But this also makes it easier for my children that aren't fans of onions, right? It gives the food a good flavor, but they don't have to sit there and eat the onion. And it means it's pretty fast because you're not cutting them as small.
And so red onions are going to be, is there a difference in taste if you use white onions versus red onions?
I want to say they're kind of so you have your yellow onions are the sweetest, and then I want to say the red are kind of in between. They're not as strong as a white onion, but not as sweet as a yellow. So they're like that nice in between, and they do leave your fingers a little bit purple. So I'm actually going to take my cutting board over, and I'm going to move you guys over to the stove because we're going to start cooking over there. So just make sure I get everything here. And we're good, right?
Yeah, a little bit, if you can do it a little bit more to the left so we see the other way. Yeah, that's perfect. That's great.
All right, awesome. Let me just grab the cutting board. Here. So my mom is in desperate need of a new stove, so we actually have to light the back burner to light the front burner. So if you bear with me for 1 second. So I try to not use too much oil when I cook. So I use water as often as I can. And with this, I have found it to be fine using water. So I actually have a cup right here. I'm just going to pour a little bit of water at the bottom. Get a little bit more. And like I said, it's a preference. You can absolutely use oil. A lot of times when I do cook, I use either avocado oil or olive oil. All right.
And can you talk a little bit about why you are trying to use less oil?
I just try to, I like to get all of my fats out of things like avocados and like different types of beans and just the healthier nuts and seeds and stuff like that. So I kind of sparingly use oils. I do know there's a lot of great nutrients in olive oil. I grew up using a lot of olive oil. There's lots of nutrients in both of them, but I just figure the less that I can use, the better.
Mhm.
And I can use it for different, I guess for different methods. So does that make sense? Kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people are trying to use less oil just to avoid the fats and the calories. And if water, if water works just as well, then it's an option people have for trying to reduce the amount of oil that they're using.
I think what happens is you don't always realize how much you're using. So versus sprinkling a little bit in the pan, it can sometimes add up to a lot. So I figure, where you can eliminate is good. So I am actually going to put this down a little bit to a medium heat, and I'm going to let it sit while I chop up my kale and so Chard. So I'm moving you again back over to the table.
Mhm.
All right, let's grab the cutting board and just make sure you can still see everything. All right, you're still good?
Yeah, it's
curious.
beautiful. It's perfect.
I'm
Okay,
curious as to what camera she's using?
Oh, it's on
Nicole?
my phone. I just have like a little tripod thing that moves with me. So
And an iPhone?
oh no, it's actually a Note. It's a Galaxy Note.
Okay.
So it's got a nice big camera on it, which is fun for this.
Thank
So
you.
I got a nice big bunch of kale, and I really just take it. And so when I'm trying to do something fast, the kale I'll just rip up, or like a salad, something like that. For this, I'm going to chop it. So I take the whole thing and I just cut it. You can cut it as big or as small as you want. And I like to eat the stem as well. If you don't, you want to rip the leaves off and then chop it. But since I do like the stem, it cooks down enough for me that I'm happy with it. So you can really, it's your choice. And I should mention my mom's knives are very dull, which I told her are not the safest thing, but that's why I'm struggling so much, because they are not as sharp as they should be.
Well, it's a good reminder that we don't need fancy equipment necessarily to
Yeah.
be able to make delicious food.
I'm gonna take some of this. I have a bowl. I'm just gonna put it here on the side while we're cutting everything up.
So did you say you are going to put the stems in or not?
I will cut pretty much all the way down. I like to use them. Not everyone does. And they do, they cook down a little bit so they're easy to chew. They're not going to stay so tough. I even will just eat them raw like that, but that's just, I'm used to eating them to where I enjoy. Some of my kids actually like that, which makes me so happy when they do.
So there's a question about whether the stems are nutritious also.
I'm not going to say that I know the answer to that because I don't. I'm just going to assume that they would be, but I can't. It wouldn't be an honest answer if I said yes or no.
Well, I can try and help you out. I mean, the stems are definitely tougher, but so they have more fiber in them. And I do think they're also nutritious. I think kale and spinach and all of these dark greens are really considered power foods. So, and any part of the vegetable that can be eaten, why not eat it, right? If you're buying it, you may as well consume as much of it as possible. The stems are definitely tougher to eat. So my personal preference is to cook them. Some people eat, raw kale salad, and that's great. There are beautiful ways to prepare that, and maybe we'll do that in the near future. But kale stems maybe are more delicious if you saute them and put some, salt and oil on them and soften them up a little bit.
Yeah, I have in times chewed them kind of like the way you would chew a carrot, but they are definitely easier to eat once they're cooked. And I think all, like you said, all of the, and we're moving on to the Swiss chard, which I prefer rainbow Swiss chard because it's got all the different colors and phytonutrients in it, which just is my preference, is to get a little bit of what, you're tasting the rainbow. So you get a little bit of everything. You've got the red, you got the orange, yellow in there, obviously the green. Good. So, but I think of all of the dark leafy greens as powerhouses, kale is my favorite because it really does have so many different vitamins. It even has calcium, potassium. It's just packed with everything. You even got your B vitamins in there. So it's definitely loaded with so much stuff.
And again, if we're talking about the stems, they're completely edible, right? So they may be a little tougher, but we're cooking them up. So they'll soften up with the heat, just like the tops. So obviously it's personal preference, but I don't like to throw anything that's edible away. So, as you're showing us, you can chop them up. And sometimes when you chop them up smaller, right, then maybe they're sort of less.
Yeah, it's definitely easier. And the Swiss chard isn't as tough as kale. So of course I always do the stems for the Swiss chard. I like Swiss chard. I have found that some people find it to be a little bit bitter. But if you season it right, like we've got the garlic, we've got the onions, we're doing salt and pepper and everything. So when it's seasoned, it does take on a really nice taste. So it's I don't
So
notice
Nicole-
it being too bitter.
Sorry? Oh,
I said, I don't really notice the bitterness just because of, when it's seasoned well. Yeah.
and there's a question about where you get the Swiss chard. Can you get it at Trader Joe's? Are there other places to find it?
So Swiss chard you can find most places. I've definitely gotten it at farmers markets. Lately, I've been doing Misfit Market, where you get the big box in the mail every week. And I usually get a nice big bunch of Swiss chard and kale and stuff like that. I have gotten it at Whole Foods. When I was in the Bronx, Amazon Fresh would deliver Swiss chard and kale. They don't get the delivery here, so I definitely need to get back home soon for that. But yeah, you can definitely get it at Trader Joe's. I'm trying to remember if I ever seen it at Key Food, but I don't think so. Stop and Shop has it as well, but I just can't remember Key Food. I know that's a local one.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Misfits Market, because if people don't know that, that's definitely worth checking out. It's an online company, and they actually are delivering and selling food that otherwise would have been wasted. So they call it Misfits Market because sometimes the vegetables are a little bit, not exactly perfect, but completely fine to eat. And they sell it at a reduced rate. So, that's something that you might want to check out. I actually also order from Misfits Market. And not only do I love the food they deliver, but that you're also saving food that otherwise would have gone to waste. So it's kind of like a way of recycling and also getting your vegetables.
So is that a weekly delivery?
You can do it however you want. You can do it once a month. You can do it once every other week. It's totally up to you.
Is it subscription? Do you have to subscribe or something, or you just buy it when you want it?
You do subscribe, but you can cancel and change your, when you.
Yeah, I've paused before if there's like a week that I don't need it. So it's cool. I'm gonna add a little bit at a time so I don't overwhelm the pan. So I usually just take a handful, kind of give it a stir, maybe 2 because it's a big pan, and then I'll give it a stir. I may add a little bit more water as well. Actually, I will definitely add a little bit more water to it. Yeah, you guys can see everything really good still, right?
Yeah, for people who came on a little bit late, you can go to Nicole's picture and pan and pin her. There's 3 little dots on the top of her picture, and if you click on that, you can pin her, and then her screen will come up bigger. But yeah, the people, is everybody else comfortable with what they're seeing? I think the visuals are great. Yes, I'm getting thumbs up.
Awesome. So I just kind of mix it around, make sure everything gets a little bit wet so it's cooking out pretty good. And I always love to look at all the colors in it. Sometimes I'll add mini peppers. And then we still have those black beans to add. So I just want to make sure everything gets in here first. I'm going to add the rest of the kale and Swiss chard.
So Nicole, I'm noticing you're not measuring anything. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So actually, it's funny because I was raised, I have an Italian mother and my father's Mexican. So she always says that's just kind of like the Italian way to do things, is they just, like, if you're making gravy or whatever you're making, they just kind of throw things in there. So that's the way I was always taught, is just you kind of figure it out as you go, I guess. That I've never had, like I said, I've never had formal training, but my middle daughter is the opposite. And her and my mom, when they're cooking together, they kind of go back and forth because she wants to measure every little thing that she does. And we've never done things that way. So I just kind of wing it, and I guess baking, I would measure everything. So for something like baking, I would do that. But for this, I just kind of throw in as much. So I guess basically if I have leftover, I just use it for other stuff because I will have leftover. I always make more rather than less.
Yeah, I think the reason I mention is it's really nice for people to know that you don't have to be so strict about exactly how much you're putting in the pan, right? You're taking
Yeah.
a bunch of kale, you're taking a bunch of the Swiss chard, you're cutting it up and you're putting it in the pan. It doesn't have to be exactly 3 cups or exactly 4 cups. It's, you know, and if you have a little bit extra, that's fine. I think a lot of people are afraid in some ways of cooking because they're worried they're going to mess it up. So I appreciate that you're being kind of relaxed about that.
You will see at the end that I have a lot of leftover, and I will use it for all sorts of different stuff. If I wasn't putting black beans, I would even make it with pasta. I would do so much with it. I've done quesadillas with it. So I like to prep big things at the beginning of the week and then kind of take a little bit of this and a little bit of that throughout the week and make different meals with it. So I'll even do, like, if there's leftover of this, I may do it with some egg whites in the morning. So lots of, you know, I guess when you're not worrying so much about everything, you just use what you have left over. Or sometimes I'll make enchiladas and we call them or eggs, and we call them the clean out the fridge meal, where you just take all the different stuff you have and you throw it in a pan and then you make something with it. So
I love that. I love that. Recycling your vegetables.
Yes.
So there's a question here about whether you can use what's left over and mix it with soup.
Absolutely. This would definitely be great in soup. So it's, yeah. Well, you can use it with pretty much anything you can think of. I actually have a video on YouTube of it's kale, Swiss chard, onions, garlic, and the mini peppers. And I make that, and then I use it for other videos where, like, I've done it with the quesadillas, or like I said, with pasta, I've done it that way. I'll even put it in a pot of gravy to make for all the sauces. So you can really, like, I guess the same like with soup, when I put it in gravy, it cooks up very well. So I'm just going to stir this a little bit more, and then I am going to add the black beans. I actually decided to do canned beans. I do most of the time make my own, which I also have a video making the black beans, but for today, to keep it simple, I just did a can. So I'm going to leave you guys right here, and I'm going to grab my can.
Guys, I'm sorry to cut you, but I have the link to the recipe that she's using in the chat. Sorry, I forgot to put it earlier.
Awesome.
Yeah, for
Mariama,
whoever can have it.
thank you so much. That's a big help.
You.
I just want to remind people that if people want to look up Nicole's black bean recipe and how she is making the things she's mentioning, you have her Instagram. Mariama put that in the chat box. So if you want to subscribe to her Instagram, you'll be able to follow up on all of the video postings that she's already done.
Okay, so like I said, I'm using a canned version of black beans. I usually look for lower sodium because sometimes you can have something that's good for you and then they load it with different things. Obviously, making it fresh is always better. But sometimes, you know, you're in a hurry, and especially everyone leads a busy life, and with kids and stuff, sometimes you want things like, canned foods. So I'm actually going to add the whole thing of this. Maybe I should grab a different.
So Nicole, you don't recommend rinsing what do you call it? The beans?
Rinsing the beans first before you put it in your food. So
you can. I've never done that. I usually just throw things together, but yes, you should probably rinse it first. I just throw things in and figure when it's on the heat, it's getting cooked off anything that it shouldn't have in there. But it would be healthier for you to not do it that way.
No, I'm asking because I barely never see the low sodium one.
Oh,
I barely don't see it.
Where did I got it at Stop and Shop.
So not every store has
Yeah, I guess not everyone has it. I'm trying to think of, I know I've also gotten cans of black beans from Misfit Market too, and I'm trying to remember if those ones are low sodium or not. You know what? It may just be the Goya ones that I've seen low sodium. And I know for sure Stop and Shop has had them, but you may not be able to find them everywhere. So, it comes down to, it is always better just to make them yourself, which, like I said, and like you put up the link, it's there. It's actually really easy to do. And the fun thing about when you make it yourself is beans are less gassy the longer you cook them. So when you cook them yourself, you kind of have control over that. And of course, with the sodium, you have control of what you're putting in it. So you don't have to add as much. So yeah, the best bet is always to just make it fresh.
Which is this size can at Stop and Shop, because I don't have that store near me, so I don't usually shop there.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
Well,
I guess
it sounds, Mariama, like you're gonna have to make your own beans from scratch.
Yeah.
Then you don't have to put any salt in it if you don't want.
Yeah. You know what? With the
You know,
black,
Convenience.
you know what? It's actually a lot easier than it seems, because you can get it set up and then you have to wait for it for like, it takes a few hours. Like I said, the longer you let it cook, the better it is because it's less gassy. But you don't have to pay that much attention to it. You put it on a low flame and you can go and do other things. And it's just the setup in the beginning. You want to rinse the beans, and then you want to, you get it all set up to where it's boiling first, and then you lower it down, and then you really don't have to do much. So it sounds like it's a lot of work to make them from scratch, but it's actually a matter of just letting it sit on the stove and cook. And then whatever you decide to put in it. Like sometimes I like to put different things like onions or cilantro and different stuff like that, but it's actually way easier than it seems.
And the other thing that was mentioned in the chat box is that, if you buy dried beans and you cook them yourself, you're going to have way more beans than you get from buying them in a can. And you can freeze them, as somebody mentioned in the chat. You can freeze the ones that you're not ready to use right away and use them another time. So if you're cooking on a budget, it also makes sense to make them yourself.
Very cost effective. Okay, so I don't know if everyone can see really good. The colors look really pretty. It's cooked down enough to where I like it. You can let it cook all the way down. I prefer to keep some of like the texture to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this part off, and then we will get the tortillas ready, and we're gonna start putting everything together. Actually, while I'm here, I will also preheat the oven, because that way, once you're done getting everything set up, you just pop it right in the oven and it's ready to go. And I'm gonna put it at 350, and let's move you guys over this way.
Julissa, you can now access the recipe. I changed it.
All righty. So I'm gonna scoop this out of the way. So in the recipe that I sent, I have several different ways that you can warm up the tortillas. Just for the sake of making it quicker, I'm gonna do the microwave. And I have a plate, and you wanna slightly dampen your towel, which I already did. It's not super wet, just a little bit under the water, and kind of just pat it out. And I'm gonna do 5 at a time. I'm doing 15 total. So I'm gonna take 5. And I just place it, hope you guys can see, okay, so I just place it in the towel, I cover it up. I usually flip it over just to make sure it doesn't open. I don't think it actually would. And then I pop it in the microwave. Usually I do 30 seconds. If it needs more, which it rarely does, then you can always give it. I guess it would depend on the brand of tortilla that you had. Some, I guess, would be tougher. I actually have, this is the brand that I'm using. So they're not too tough like some of the other ones. So I'm going to pop it in the microwave. The traditional way to do it is in a pan with oil, but that essentially means you're frying the tortillas, which is what, again, like I said earlier, I try not to do a lot of cooking with oil, especially frying. So I'm going to do 3 times. I'm just going to pop them each into the microwave. So there.
So Nicole, you could do the same thing and put them in the oven, right?
You can do it, yes. Like I put on the paper, you can also do it in the oven. I want to say it's even easier because you can do them all at once in the oven, but it takes a little bit longer. So this seemed to be the fastest way for me to do it, was just to do it in the microwave for you guys. so that you can actually roll them up. Because if you try to roll them up when they're not soft, they're just gonna break on you. So as you can see, this one is already broken. So when you soften them up, it makes it easy for you to actually work with.
Now, that's a really good tip, to know that they need to be a little bit warm before you put the filling in, so that
And
they don't just collapse on you.
Yeah, you can also do it right on the stove, just kind of, when we're warming up tortillas, like if I was making tacos or something like that, we just put it right on a pan or even like a skillet or something, and you let it get a little bit warm on each side, just so that it's soft enough to maneuver without breaking.
And what brand would you recommend, or they just about the same?
Most of them are about the same. I have noticed some of them are a little bit tougher than others. So I like it to already be a little bit soft. Of course, if you can get them fresh, that's the best. But you're rarely gonna find fresh in most grocery stores. Mine doesn't have them. So you have to go, I think, to like special markets where they would have them. But yeah, just this is the brand that I usually get. There's another one I can't think of the name of, where they're just, you can kind of feel the texture. They're already a little bit soft.
And so, Nicole, can you tell us a little bit about the size of the tortilla? I know that tortillas come in different sizes. Do you prefer-
So for enchiladas, I don't know the exact measurement on it, but it's, as you can see, it's kind of like, I guess like the size of my hand. So it's a small tortilla. The bigger ones are better for like if you were going to do a wrap or like a burrito or something like that. But this, I guess I have seen smaller, but it's rare. So I'm gonna say this is small. so
And
a small tortilla. No.
And there's a question about whether gluten-free tortillas would taste as delicious. Do you have a feeling about that?
You know, when it comes to flour tortillas, I've tried a lot of different ones, and I've never really noticed the gluten-free ones to not taste as good. So I actually went to Arizona a few years ago, and I got some beet tortillas and some cactus tortillas, and I thought they were incredible. I just was trying to figure out how to order them from them all the way over there. So I've tried all different kinds, and they're great. So
yeah, that's really good to know, that for people who are trying to avoid gluten, or people, you know, with celiac, or that there are options. And really, it seems like there are more and more options every day. So there are ways to still make tortillas, even if you're trying to avoid gluten.
Oh, absolutely. I'm gonna grab this batch and all right. So I'm gonna put in the next one, and they shouldn't be like overly hot. That's why 30 seconds is usually good, because you don't want to grab them and then burn your fingers, and then you don't want to do any more. So let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will throw these back onto my cutting board and throw this in here.
And for those of you who came in a little bit late, if you have questions, feel free to unmute and ask Nicole whatever is on your mind. If you'd rather put your question in the chat box, that is also fine. We're glad that you're here.
So while those are warming up, I am going to bring over the kale and Swiss chard and black beans.
So Nicole, would you say this is a great recipe for hosting? Because you were talking about having so many leftovers of the chard and kale, but if you had lots of people coming, then you'd obviously be able to just keep filling the tortillas and have you know, plenty of food.
No, it's absolutely easy, because I feel like anything that you can put in a tray is easy for serving. And I've done it where like I've made several different kinds. Like I'll do one that's vegan, and then one that has cheese, and I've even done like some with chicken. You can do it for, really, you can satisfy everyone's needs with it, and it's a nice, you usually make a nice big tray of it, so it's definitely great for serving. And with all the leftover, I could make multiple. So All right, I've got one more set of tortillas, and then we're gonna start putting it all together, which is the fun part.
And the other thing I'm realizing is that this recipe is going to be great if you are working with kids, because
Yes.
they can stuff it and roll it and kind of be involved in the process, right?
This is actually one of the first times that I haven't had helpers, because usually I give someone something to do and everyone knows how to handle warming up tortillas and what they're supposed to put next. Okay, so I do just want to mention the enchilada sauce. I have never made enchilada sauce from scratch. I know that there's lots of recipes out there if you ever want to try it out. I did buy some from Trader Joe's. Most supermarkets have a canned version. I want to say I've seen it pretty much everywhere. I like the Trader Joe's ones, but you can really use whichever you prefer. And one of these days, I'll learn how to do it from scratch and I'll make a video about it. But the first thing I like to do is pour some on the bottom. That way, once you're making everything, it's not really dry. You've got it, you know, nice and moistened. So I'm just going to in here. And just kind of move it around a little bit, I think. Yeah. I mostly try to make sure that it's at every corner. That way, you know, everything is covered, and it looks like we are pretty much covered at the bottom there. All right. So then I assume you guys can still, yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Right. Good stuff. So this is where if I had my kids, I'd have my assembly line going. But I'm going to grab that last bunch of tortillas. Okay.
So people can, sorry, people can just look for enchilada sauce. Is that what it says on the bottle?
Yep. If you look up enchilada sauce, you will find lots of, I actually looked it up recently because I was debating if I would just make my own, but since I've never done it before, I figured this was not the right time to do it. But there are tons of recipes out there for it.
Yeah, no, I like the idea that we don't have to be purist about everything, right? There's certain things we can use out of a bottle or a can, and we can also be using fresh ingredients with the same recipe.
You can do a little bit of both, right? Makes life a little bit easier. Okay, so there's different ways that you can put enchiladas together. If you were doing it with cheese, I usually like to put some of the cheese down first and then put whatever my mixture is going to be. You can also do it where you don't put cheese inside and you just put cheese on top. I'm doing it vegan, so I'm not going to have any cheese, but if you are using cheese, those are the two different ways that you can do that. So I'm just going to take a little bit of my mixture and put it inside. You don't want to put so much that it won't roll up, but you also want to really be able to taste it in each one. So you put it in there and then you take it and you kind of pinch. I don't know if you can see, you kind of pinch the bottom there or the middle so that it'll roll. You roll it up and you just stick it inside. I have never made it without everything like little bits falling here and there. So it's just, I guess it comes with making it, right? And if you wanted to, you could always add enchilada sauce when you're sauteing everything to get more of the sauce in there. But I find that there's enough on the bottom, and then we're going to pour it on the top at the end to where it gives it enough of a flavor. But if you really enjoy the flavor and want a lot of it, that's another way to add some more flavor into there. I
And
suppose
so
it's
can you
nice.
talk a little bit about the nutritional value of each of these tortillas? We have protein in there with the black beans. We have
Oh, yeah.
incredible
Absolutely.
power greens, right? We get our vegetables. What
You know,
else?
I just realized I didn't add any of my seasoning to my greens, and I was going to, so mine isn't going to taste as yummy and delicious. But I will tell you, because part of that was the nutritional value, I did have some nutritional yeast. Because I'm vegetarian, I love putting this on stuff. There's 5 grams of protein for every tablespoon. So I do like to use nutritional yeast, and it does also have the B12 vitamins in it. So I like to use this for a little added protein. I put turmeric in almost everything because it's anti-inflammatory. So I know people love the flavor of turmeric. I've never been a really big fan of it, but what I've noticed is once it's mixed in with everything, it's not like an overpowering flavor. So even if you love it, go ahead and add tons of it. If you don't, you can add enough to get the benefits of it without overpowering your food. And turmeric always needs to be paired with black pepper in order to get the full benefits out of it. And then the salt I just add for flavor. So in the meal itself, like you were saying, the black beans I like to add, because I always like to add a protein to everything that I'm making. So whether it's black beans or it's lentils or whatever I'm adding, it gives it a little extra protein in it. So as a vegetarian, you're always looking for ways to add protein to the meals that you're making.
That's beautiful. And turmeric is also a great anti-carcinogen, right? It helps fight cancer. So it's not only anti-inflammatory, it's one of those spices that has many medicinal effects.
Yeah, it's worth trying to squeeze into everything, which I actually do. I've even put it in oatmeal before, where like it only takes a little bit to get all the benefit out of it. So I try to squeeze it in. I can't believe I forgot to add all my seasoning. I'm so sorry for everyone that was watching because we missed that step.
Well, the recipe does call for it. So when you make it yourself, you'll remember to put in the turmeric and the salt and pepper.
Yes. And it's not too late now. If I had wanted to, you could still add in those seasonings. It's not like it's something that needs to be cooked up. So it can get thrown in there and you'd have the great flavor from it. So we're really just going to fill each of these, and some of them will have more of some than the other. Like that one seemed to get a lot of kale. So I always start by rolling everything this direction, and then I turn it, which you'll see when I get there. I turn it and I do, usually I can only fit 2 on each side, but it'll depend on the size of your pan. You can try to squeeze as many in there as you want.
So Nicole, how are we doing on time? It's 7:23.
Oh, I guess we need to hurry up, huh? All right, I will get this going, move a little faster here.
It looks beautiful. We're all really interested in joining you for dinner. Once COVID is over, we'll
Have a nice party.
we'll have a nice party. Exactly.
All right. So actually, while I'm putting this together, I will talk about the next thing that I was going to make is just a little salad. And I take usually baby spinach. Ooh, that looked broken a little bit. Baby spinach and baby kale. And I just mix them with a little bit of, actually, I'll show you this right here. I have this bright purple cabbage that I will cut up once I pop this into the oven. And I mix all 3 of those together. I'll cut up a little bit of radishes, and then I simply squeeze a little bit of lime on top. And that goes really well with the enchiladas. I've also done it as a topping to throw onto tacos. Just because it's a very basic, simple salad. So you don't need anything fancy for it. All right, we are almost done here.
And again, you don't use oil. The dressing that you use for that salad doesn't call for oil. So that's another very simplified salad, right?
Yeah, and you could add some like salt and pepper if you wanted a little bit more. But it's not a salad that I would do on its own. It's more something that goes along with the enchiladas because you've got the flavor like the lime. And I feel like purple cabbage just always tastes really well when you're doing Mexican food. It just, something about it just goes really well together. Same with the radishes. And I've also used it like throwing it on top of tostadas, different stuff like that. All right, so that's as many as I'm gonna throw in there. And I'm gonna pop this, oh, no, I'm not. I'm trying to rush now, so I'm like forgetting my steps. Okay, so now we're gonna take the enchilada sauce and I like to pour it on top. I start right through the middle and in the middle of each of these. And then I go to each corner and then I am gonna spread it out with the spoon that I have, but I aim for the corners just because that's where it tends to, if you don't put enough, that's where it will tend to get dry. And this is where I kind of go with a lot of the sauce, especially if I didn't put stuff inside. And this was already used a little bit, but we're using a lot. And then you just kind of spread it. Again, aiming for those corners. And if you were going to add cheese on top, this is where you would add your cheese. So once everything is spread, usually I would just take cheese and pour it all over it, and then we pop it in the oven.
Beautiful. Look at that. Wait, show us. Could you just put that in front of the camera for a
Yes.
minute? Wow, that looks amazing. Just delicious.
Nicole, is this the only type of sauce that you recommend for this recipe?
What was the question?
Is this the only, is enchilada sauce the best sauce for this recipe, or are there other sauces you could use? If you used a tomato sauce, would that
I
work?
think the tomato sauce would be different because there's a lot of different ingredients in enchiladas. That there is tomato, but tomato isn't like the, I think it's more of peppers and things like that that are in it. I'm trying to think of, I mean, I've had other types of enchiladas, but it's usually like, you can do an avocado type of sauce on it. Yeah, the ones I'm thinking of would be like a poblano sauce or like an avocado sauce, something like that. I wouldn't go tomato sauce, but there's, I'm sure you could play around and add different things. It's more so to make it like moistened. So I guess you could try all kinds of different stuff. I've only done it with enchilada sauce.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fun. People can experiment and see what they like.
You know, that's my favorite thing with being in the kitchen is kind of making things up. So it's, you know, it's whatever you want to make of it. I actually was never taught this recipe. It was something that I just kind of threw together. And I mean, I was taught enchiladas, but all the different things that I add to it, I just kind of threw together. So we're going to move on and I'm going to try to rush through this salad. When it comes to greens, I do usually rinse them first, but just to make a pretty salad, I'm going to take a handful and save us some time and throw it right in here. We got a little bit of that. I have the baby kale and the baby spinach, which if I was going to do it for something like tacos, I'll just show you a little sliver. I would take it in my hand like this, and I would take a knife and just kind of cut it into small pieces that you could put right on top of a tostada, taco, or even if you wanted to do it like that with the enchiladas. Now, for the purple cabbage, which is nice and bright and pretty, I usually just, I don't use the whole thing. I use a little bit here and there. So what I will do, and I hope you can see this, I'm just going to cut off a little bit of it on the end. Once it's like that, I'm just going to cut slivers to throw right into this.
So you can see that what Nicole is doing is balancing the colors as well as the flavors, right? She's putting in the red cabbage with the greens, and that gives it kind of a bright, diverse look to it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of lots of colors in my food. And then I do have some radishes. And with these, I always cut off the ends on each side. And then I'll just slice them. I'm actually just going to put one just for the simplicity of not making you guys go over on time.
Yeah, we may need to, how long is are the tortillas gonna cook for?
You know what? I am actually going to finish this up and then I'll pull them out and I'll show you how they're looking, because they really don't, since I don't have cheese, you don't have to worry about waiting for it to melt. So you'll just kind of see how it's starting to come together. And I think that that'll give you a good idea of what it's going to look like.
That sounds great.
All right. So the last step of this is really just lime juice. So if your lime is not soft, which I softened mine already, you can kind of just rub it on the cutting board to get the juices going and get it a little bit softer. Or if you have like a lemon press, you can always, once you cut it, squeeze it in there. But I am just going to squeeze my lime. I don't know why I'm pulling it on.
So that's a trick people may not know, right? Just rolling it on your cutting board before you cut into it actually softens up the
Yeah, it
inside.
makes it a little bit easier to squeeze. I suppose I could have gone for a little bit more on that one. And if you have a lemon press, it's very easy to just pop it in there and then you get all the juices out, which my kids like that because then they'll make limeade, I guess is what you would call it, instead of lemonade.
Hmm?
All right. And then I'm a very cook with my hands person, so I will just mix it up. And then you've got your very simple, I didn't add a lot of the radishes in there. Normally I would add more than that, so you're not seeing them so well, but very simple, pretty salad to go along with your enchiladas.
Beautiful.
So let me peek and see if they've at least started to kind of cook a little bit now. All right. So we have like maybe 2 more minutes so I can show you them kind of getting a little bit crispier, just a tiny bit, or am I pushing it too far?
I just want to remind people if they can take 1 minute to go to the survey and just give us some feedback, that would really, here, Mariama just put it in the chat box. We would really love it if you could fill that out. It won't take you more than 30 seconds. And while we're waiting for these tortillas to finish up, perfect time to take a minute.
And I did mention in the, I know it's in the recipe, but you can absolutely, if you didn't want to pop them right into the oven, you can put it in the fridge and then cook it tomorrow or cook it at a later time, or even put it in the freezer and have it ready for another time that you wanted to use it. So even if you were going to make multiple trays and you decided, okay, one's for today and one's for later down the road.
Oh, that's nice. So you literally can do all the steps you just did and cover it and put it in the fridge and then wake up tomorrow and cook it tomorrow and it'll be fresh and delicious.
Yeah, it's one of those things that kind of holds its own. And the instructions on how to do that I put in, they're in the recipe. So if you wanted to, you know, so you would know how to thaw it out of the freezer and all that kind of stuff. So let's see what we're looking at. I think it's not quite done, but it's enough that I can show you and you will enjoy it.
We're excited.
I think you can kind of see how the edges, oh, am I holding? There you go.
That's perfect.
The edges are kind of starting to get a little bit crispy. I would, of course, leave it and let it fully cook and then eat it. But if you were really starving, you could eat it right now. It's warm enough. There's no cheese to worry about melting and you'd be good to go.
Beautiful. And it looks so professional and so delicious. People are agreeing with me. We are hungry and ready to enjoy. It looks amazing. Nicole, thank you so much. We really appreciate your sharing your recipe with us and your 2 recipes with us. Are there any other questions before we wrap it up? Everybody is saying, wow, looks delicious, nice, yum. So we see that we can make amazing things in less than an hour, right? We know that food is the best medicine and we need to fight this virus and other stressors by eating nourishing real food. And that's what Bronx Eats is here to do, and help you reach your goals, your nutritional goals, your health goals. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really hope that Nicole succeeds in her business plans. So keep your eye out for her, remind us of the name.
Healthy on the Run.
Healthy on the Run. So eat real food, stay healthy. We hope to see you again next week. We will be continuing next Thursday for the next 2 Thursdays for some more cooking and programming. And thank you again for joining us. Nicole, thank you so, so much for your incredible
Thank you,
Uh,
Nicole, and thank you, everyone.
energy and the contribution. And Mariama, thank you for organizing.
Not a problem.